There are hundreds of ways to build your Guardian in Destiny 2, from your subclass and exotics down to your weapons and armor mods. The combinations are endless. But occasionally a build comes along that is so powerful and so versatile that it absolutely defines the PvE meta. These are builds that offer incredibly strong toolkits that both keep you alive and provide a massive benefit to your team. Today we're going over 3 examples of these types of builds, one for each class, and I'm going to show you what makes them all stand apart. My name is Gray. If you find today's video helpful, a like and sub is greatly appreciated. Now let's get into it. Starting off our trio of builds, I want to begin with Solar Warlock. This subclass is a textbook example of the kind of survivability, strength, and versatility that we want our Guardian to have. One of Solar Warlock's biggest advantages is just how good the neutral game of the subclass is on its own. Even with no exotics, we can have nearly infinite Radiant and Restoration with the right fragments, and we bring a ton of healing and survivability to our entire team. Then of course we have our super, the Well of Radiance, which I would argue is one of, if not the most essential super in the game for any sort of in-game content, especially with a fire team. Those reasons alone make this subclass a staple in in-game content, but then we have an entire slew of exotic armor pieces that all pair extremely well and offer different playstyles. However, there are 2 here that really allow you to niche down into specific areas of the subclass. Phoenix Protocol allows you to get your Well of Radiance back incredibly fast after using it, allowing you to constantly take advantage of one of the best supers in the game. I find this really useful in dungeons and boss fights with multiple damage phases so that you always have your well whenever you need it. If you pair this exotic with Celestial Fire and Healing Grenades, you can support your entire fire team with the Radiant and Restoration buffs. By using Ember of Torches, we can take advantage of the range on Celestial Fire to activate Radiant for ourselves and nearby allies for a free 20% damage buff. This doesn't stack with your well, but you can use it in situations where you need to be on the move. With Ember of Solace and Ember of Empyrean, we can keep the Radiant and Restoration buffs active on ourselves nearly permanently when getting solar final blows. And lastly, be sure to take the Touch of Flame aspect to make our healing grenades as strong as possible. If you want to be an absolute hero, you can also run Divinity to ensure that you will never be replaced on your raid team ever again. Now, of course, we can also play this subclass in a very different, more offensive way. Instead of using Phoenix Protocol, we can use Starfire Protocol. This exotic turns the Solar Warlock subclass into a DPS machine. While we are giving up some of the more supporting aspects of the subclass, we more than make up for that with massive damage output. Starfire Protocol grants us a second fusion grenade, and they both recharge incredibly fast when we deal empowered weapon damage. Empowered weapon damage counts as any time you are standing in an empowering rift or your Well of Radiance. This pairs incredibly well with Wither Horde, as it will be constantly ticking for empowered damage and giving you nearly unlimited fusion grenades to work with. For this setup, we of course want to take Empowering Rift. I still recommend Celestial Fire for your melee, and of course your fusion grenade. Touch of Flame is essential as it allows our fusion grenades to explode twice for even more damage. If you want to go all in on this playstyle, you'll want to take Ember of Ashes, which applies more Scorch stacks with our grenade in melee and will allow us to set off ignitions with our fusion grenade due to that second explosion. Ember of Singeing grants our rift back faster when scorching targets, and Ember of Char and Ember of Eruption go hand in hand to make our ignitions as lethal as possible and add some nice ad clear to the build as well. I recommend 100 Resilience and 100 Discipline for either version of the subclass. It's very easy to add an Elemental Well mod setup to either of these builds as well to take advantage of things like Font of Might or Firepower. Solar Warlock is incredible no matter how you play it, but these 2 options really let you choose what makes your build powerful. Now moving on to the latest addition to my list of S tier builds in Destiny 2, Void Hunter has always been an incredibly useful subclass for any level of content. But as of Season 19, the go-to Void Hunter exotic has to be Gyrfalcon's Halberd. Bungie reworked this exotic at the beginning of the season, and it immediately skyrocketed to the top of every hunter's list of exotics to keep on hand at all times. This exotic allows us to essentially have unlimited volatile rounds since we get 10 seconds of volatile every single time we exit invisibility. When we pair this with the right aspects, fragments, and weapons, we will have unlimited invisibility, overshields, and devour going all the time. I'm sure you've seen multiple videos about Gyrfalcons, but the true power of this build comes from the fact that it works with dozens of different weapon loadouts, and depending on what you choose to use, you can take this build to an insanely high level. I'm going to show you the best setup and loadout to use with this exotic, as it takes the volatile mechanic to a new level. On our subclass, you can choose between Deadshot or Mobius Quiver for your super, and remember the tether is now one of the only sources in the game that provides a 30% debuff, making us an extremely useful asset to any team. I choose to take Marksman's Dodge, as the instant reload is nice and it has a shorter cooldown, which allows us to take advantage of Gyrfalcons. We don't lean too much into our smoke bomb here, so Gamblers really isn't necessary. I prefer the Vortex Grenade, as we can extend the duration of this grenade greatly and use it to apply the weakened debuff, which will give us yet another way of turning invisible. With the Stylish Executioner aspect, anytime we defeat a suppressed, weakened, or volatile target, we turn invisible. This creates a never-ending loop of invisibility and volatile rounds. Our void weapons will always apply the volatile debuff, and our grenade and smoke bomb will apply the weakened debuff. This gives us several methods of reactivating invisibility, but then we also take Vanishing Step, which allows our dodge to turn us invisible as well. We basically always have a method of turning invisible and activating Gyrfalcon. Each fragment has an important role, so I'm going to touch on each of them. Echo of Persistence increases the duration of our Void Overshields, our Devour timer, and our Invisibility timer. Echo of Undermining allows our Void Grenades to apply the weakened debuff, and Echo of Remnants extends the duration of our lingering grenades. Finally, Echo of Starvation will grant us Devour when we pick up an Orb of Power. This will heal us all the way back to full health and continue to heal us to full health every time we get a kill with Devour active. Now that we have the subclass locked down, the weapon loadout is where this build can get absolutely insane. In Season 19, I recommend taking Wither Horde in your kinetic slot, and we can pair this with the Weakened Clear seasonal mod to debuff targets, and this also counts as a weakened debuff and will work with the Stylish Executioner aspect. In your energy slot, you absolutely want a Void primary weapon with the Repulsor Brace perk. This perk was buffed in Season 19 by proxy, as Void Overshields now grant a 50% damage reduction while they are active instead of the previous 25%. This perk will activate constantly, as we are always defeating volatile targets, and the seasonal ritual weapon Velis X is a great option if you don't have another Repulsor Brace weapon. Our heavy weapon is what makes this build so uniquely strong. The new 900 RPM Void Machine Gun Retrofit Escapade has a very unique trick up its sleeve when it comes to volatile rounds. Due to the high damage and high rate of fire of this weapon, as well as some behind the scenes math involving damage thresholds, we are able to proc an endless chain of volatile explosions on a target. This does absolutely insane damage, especially when you add a debuff into the mix. Retrofit Escapade gets the perk combination of 4th times the charm and target lock. This allows us to stay on a single target for a long period while ramping up damage at the same time. The result is some of the most chaotic volatile explosions you've ever seen in Destiny 2. This weapon is also craftable, meaning enhanced perks are available as well. This particular loadout is what I find takes the build to its strongest form, especially when paired with a proper elemental well setup. At the end of the day, you can use a myriad of different void weapons alongside this subclass and still find amazing results. I recommend 100 resilience, and if possible, 100 mobility or 100 discipline. The higher you can get these 3 stats, the better this insane Void Hunter build will perform. Now I'll give you one guess on what Titan subclass we will be discussing today. If you guessed Arc Titan, you would be correct. Season 18 brought the Arc 3.0 subclass rework with it, and as a result, this absolute steamroller of a build was born. By now, I'm certain most of us are familiar with the sheer strength of the Arc Titan subclass, especially when paired with the ultimate Titan exotic, the Heart of Inmost Light. We've seen endless possibilities with Heart of Inmost Light on any subclass for Titan, but the Arc subclass alone is what truly turns this exotic into an absolute powerhouse behind one of the strongest toolkits in the game. This build has constant uptime on all of its abilities, and again can be paired with multiple weapon loadouts depending on what's needed for any activity. We'll start off with the Thunder Crash Super. This super is amazing for dealing large chunks of damage to bosses, or to clear a large pack of ads surrounding a champion. You can of course pair this with the Cuirass of the Falling Star exotic chest piece to increase the damage even further, which can be really helpful for things like farming raids or dungeons. We will drop our Barricade ability in favor of the Thruster ability. This ability is responsible for taking Heart of Inmost Light and borderline abusing it. With 100 resilience, this has an extremely fast cooldown, and it's reduced even further when we use our grenade or melee, again thanks to Heart of Inmost Light. It helps form one of the strongest gameplay loops in Destiny 2 right now. Your melee is pretty flexible, but I prefer shoulder charge for the mobility it offers and its ability to blind entire packs of adds or just completely delete them. We of course have to take the Storm Grenade. This grenade has become synonymous with Arc Titan thanks to the Touch of Thunder aspect. This aspect allows our Storm Grenade to track targets and fire multiple bolts of lightning. This combination is so powerful for its ability to simply throw it and forget. You'll have your Storm Grenade up often thanks to Heart of Inmost Light. You can throw them with abandon. We will also take Knockout, which will increase our melee lunge range and damage after wounding a target or breaking their shield. It also instantly begins health regeneration when we defeat a target with our melee and instantly makes us amplified. There's really only 2 fragments that are completely necessary here. Spark of Magnitude will increase the duration of our Storm Grenade, and Spark of Shock will make our grenades jolt targets, adding Chain Lightning functionality here as well. I also take Spark of Feedback and Spark of Resistance for the added stats and damage resistance, but you can experiment with these slots. The new Ikelos SMG makes an excellent pairing for our primary weapon, as it can now get the combination of Feeding Frenzy and Volt Shot, adding more Chain Lightning chaos to the build. I recommend an arc heavy weapon, and if you have a good roll on Hothead, it makes for a fantastic pairing. You can utilize things like Font of Might extremely easily with this build. This adds a 25% damage increase to our rockets or any arc weapon, and it's very easy to Thunder Crash a boss and follow up with a rocket for massive burst damage. I recommend 100 Resilience not only for the damage resistance, but also for the fastest possible cooldown on Thruster, and then 100 Discipline for maximum uptime on our Storm Grenades. This build is certainly one of the most popular Titan builds out there, but for good reason. It's very easy to set this up, and it certainly cannot be understated how much fun this build is to pilot. It's chaotic, rewarding, and extremely powerful. It is the Arc Fantasy. All of these builds are ones that I will be perfecting and fine-tuning on my way to Lightfall. These will all perform extremely well while taking on challenging new content and even potentially being day 1 raid worthy. I know there are other builds out there that can rival the strength of these 3, but these builds in particular have become iconic and synonymous with PvE and Destiny 2. I highly recommend pursuing and perfecting one of these builds on whichever class you play. They are easy to pick up, but have deep and rewarding gameplay loops that only get better as you perfect your stats, mods, and weapon loadouts. Please use the dim loadout links in the description for a template to get you started. If you enjoyed the video, a like and subscription is massively appreciated. I put a lot of work into this video, and so a very personal thank you from me if you made it this far. I also stream on Twitch 5 days a week and would love to see you there as well. Links down below in the description. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next one.